gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gohmert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank all of our witnesses. It's good to see some of you back. I don't remember seeing all of you, so otherwise it would be all of you. But if you would suppose with me that you are in a town hall back in a congressional district, and you had an elementary school student stand up and ask this question. I would like to know how each of you would answer this child's question. What right does the House of Representatives have to pick and choose what part of government gets funding? What's your response? Start with Professor Turley.
I'm sorry, the last part of the question.
What right does the House of Representatives have to pick and choose what part of government gets funded?
Well, I think the answer is clear, that in this sort of orbital hole that these three branches are placed by the framers, the key power given to Congress and the House of Representatives was the power of the purse to control the funds. What is alarming about this situation is that even that power is being challenged and being marginalized.
Okay. Professor Rosenkranz.
Article 1, Section 8 gives you the power to decide what provisions, what you want to fund and what you don't want to fund.
And Professor Cannon, Lazarus.
Professor Rosenkranz took the words right out of my mouth.
Article 1, Section 8? Is that, okay.
Article 1, Section 8, along with the Senate.
Okay. And, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we provide a copy of the answer to this question to Senate Leader Reid, since he asked that question. Now, with regard to Libya, the President said he didn't need to come to Congress in order to get our authority to start bombing in Libya. And that was a concern to some of us. He said, he'd been asked by the Organization of Islamic Conference, all 50 or 57 states, whatever they got, 50, 57, and also by some of the NATO allies that use Libyan oil. So he didn't need Congress approval because he had those requests. He was initially prepared to help the Syrian rebels, in which al-Qaeda had become, not initially, but they had become the most profound part. And he was ready to start bombing the Syrian leader that Hillary Clinton had called a reformer. Initially planned to do that without Congress's consent. He didn't think he needed Congress's consent, but obviously once there was a lot of political pushback, he threw it to Congress and let them decide. But I'm curious from each of you, what gives the President the authority to order bombing, even if he promises to limit the numbers of people that he will kill? What gives him authority to go start bombing a country? Obviously, we'd consider it an act of war if any country started dropping bombs over us. But what gives him that authority? I'm curious from each of you.
Well, first of all, I think it's a great question, because I was a little confused when Mr. Lazarus says no one's accused President Obama of being inclined to engage in war without a declaration. I was in court with members of this committee saying exactly that in the Libyan war conflict. And what disturbed us is that the White House came back and said the reason we don't need a declaration of war is because the President alone defines what a war is, and he's simply saying this isn't a war. And when we talk about the dangers, this is a danger of a different kind. And it not only is a danger of separation of powers, obviously, and a direct violation of the express language of the Constitution, but this administration, through these acts and through the large number of drone attacks, is returning the world to a state of nature. We are taking down critical international legal principles that have governed this world, that have respected territorial limitations. I just spoke to the NATO parliamentarians, and I told them, you will loathe the day that you endorse the U.S. position, that they can take unilateral action when somebody vaporizes someone in the middle of London.
Well, my time is about to run out, so let me morph that into this question to each of you to get your answer. You know, the President ordered Anwar al-Awlaki killed by a drone strike in Yemen, an American citizen without any due process, as we've come to know it. I asked the question in this room at another hearing, how far does that order extend? I mean, if Alawaki came back to Capitol Hill and led prayers as he had before of congressional staffers, was that order still good? I wanted to know in case the drone strike was still on. What authority do you think the president has to order American citizens killed in other countries in which we're not at war or in the U.S.? So my time's up, but if I could get answers to that question from each of you.
As quickly as you can, given the subject matter.
I don't believe he has authority to do that. They've cited things like hot pursuit, which makes no sense. It's not an imminent threat. I believe the president's kill list policy is flagrantly and dangerously unconstitutional.
I think it's quite a difficult question, but the Obama administration's Office of Legal Counsel memo on this is certainly quite strained. So they are reaching for analogies and analysis that is quite unconvincing, I'd say.
I am very, very far from an expert on these matters, but I would just offer one observation, and that is I don't really see why the American citizenship issue in the case that the Congressman is referring to is all that significant. I think that if a Nazi general happened to have been an American citizen, it wouldn't alter the way we could deal with it militarily. But there are weighty questions about the president's authority to implement the drone program. I don't really have an expert view on that.
Briefly, Mr.
I think it's been very effective militarily, so that is a good thing.
I'll just associate myself with Professor Turley's comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate y'all's testimony.